Macron, the French president, faces trouble from all sides. He casually insulted a bunch of African nations. Take a look.
One part was our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay. It'll come in time. I'm in a good position to know that ingratitude is a disease that cannot be transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African governments who have not had the courage, in the eyes of their public opinion, to bear it. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
No, I can't really imagine. That is the French president saying that without him, Africa wouldn't be. Yeah, he is somehow right, but not fully right in his statements. Without him, Africa wouldn't be where it is today. We would be peaceful, we would be having our uranium, we wouldn't be having deaths and fights, we would still have our beloved Thomas Sankara, we would have Patrice Lumumba, we would have so many African leaders. Our uranium would still be there. We wouldn't be having the extreme poverty people are facing today. You know, whatever he's doing now, whatever he's talking now, these are just frustrations he's showing. You know, he knows he's losing, and now this man is just out of his mind. The French president he's losing it, man.
The people of Africa. You know that France has been on the back foot in Africa over the past few years. It had military bases all over the continent, mostly in its former colonies in West and Central Africa. French troops have been squatting there for decades, ostensibly to provide security cover. But on their watch, West Africa became a terror hotspot. Boko Haram, the Islamic State West Africa province, the Islamic State Sahel province, Al-Qaeda and its offshoots like the JNIM, all these terror groups have been running rampant in the Sahel region. In former French colonies like Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, right under the noses of the French troops stationed there. This instability led to multiple military coups in West Africa, in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. And the military juntas promptly decided to switch partners. They kicked France out and chose to work with Russia instead.
So, I know you know all this story of French expulsion, the French troops, not the people. The French government was expelled from Africa. We had those countries which expelled them. Now, it was such a shame for the country of France, and it really hurt their ego, you understand? So Macron, who is the president of France, gave an insult to African countries. You know, he insulted African countries, and I think this is just basically a reaction to all the condemnation and the damnation he's been receiving from the Africans. You know, the rejection has been too much, and it's too hot to handle. So he insulted these nations that expelled the French troops from their countries, and also he calibrated some lies saying that France was withdrawing its troops deliberately from these African countries, and that they were not chased. It was them doing this deliberately to come and reorganize themselves. Yeah, that is the lie that Macron said. But the president of Senegal came forward and ashamed him, you know, on this social media platform called Twitter. And they told him, no, we chased you out. We chased you out because you didn't have good manners. That's why we chased you out. So there's been this ongoing debate on all this. I want us to have a watch at this, and then I shall get back to the video. Let's dive in.
After evicting French troops from its territory, Chad is now accusing France of contempt. N'Djamena is fuming over the recent remarks made by the French President Emmanuel Macron at a foreign policy conference. Macron not just dismissed suggestions that his country had been forced out of the Sahel region, he went on further to say that he is still waiting for the Sahel nations to thank Paris for stopping them from falling into the hands of Islamist militants. The French president even called some African leaders ungrateful.
2, we had a secure relationship. In truth, it was of two kinds. One part was our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay, it'll come in time. I'm in a good position to know that ingratitude is a disease that cannot be transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African governments who have not had the courage, in the eyes of their public opinion, to bear it. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
Many say these comments by the French president were not just condescending, but also echo a colonial rhetoric. And the African nations are not taking these comments lightly. They are calling out Macron's insulting attitude. Chad is among the first Sahel nation to do so. It has asked France to learn how to respect Africans. The statement by Chad's foreign minister was read out on state television.
The government of the Republic of Chad expresses its deep concern at the remarks made recently by the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, which reflect a contemptuous attitude towards Africa and Africans. Instead of attacking Africa, President Macron should concentrate his efforts on solving the problems that preoccupy the French people. Chad wishes to reiterate that it has no problem with France as a nation, nor with the French people, with whom it shares a history marked by human and cultural relations. However, French leaders must learn to respect the African people and recognize the value of their sacrifices.
Senegal in West Africa has also responded to Macron's comments. The country's prime minister took to social media and said France has neither the capacity nor the legitimacy to assure Africa's security or sovereignty. He also rejected Macron's claim that France's military withdrawal from Senegal was the result of its reorganization strategy. Instead, he said it was a decision as an independent and sovereign country. In another swipe at Macron, the Senegalese prime minister said if African soldiers who were mistreated and ultimately betrayed had not defended France in the Second World War, perhaps it would still be German today. Now, these latest war of words come as France has been facing major setbacks in Africa, a continent it was once the biggest colonial power in. After nations gained independence, it still kept engaging with the former colonies. Its troops were stationed in several Sahelian nations to repel Islamist attacks. But around 70% of Africa has kicked France out. The military juntas of West Africa were the first ones to do so. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger severed long-standing ties with France and other Western partners and turned to Russia for support. Then Chad, which used to be a key partner in the region, abruptly ended a key defense and security agreement with France. Around 1,000 French military personnel were stationed there and are in the process of being withdrawn. Then Senegal and the Ivory Coast have also asked France to leave military bases on their territory. Now, the only French troops present in Africa are in Gabon and Djibouti. African nations have often accused France of neo-colonial inclinations, and such comments by Macron are only fueling the anti-French sentiment further. Now, this is not the first time that he has made such remarks. Back in 2017, when he was newly elected as president, he faced a severe backlash for saying Africa has a civilizational problem. Most recently, he came into the limelight after he visited French territory Mayotte in the Indian Ocean, which was struck by a powerful cyclone. He was met with an angry reaction by the islanders over France's response to the cyclone. These are the same people who chose to remain with France while the rest of the Comoros archipelago gained independence. But Macron ended up swearing and telling them that they would be in deeper trouble if they were not a part of France. While Macron still believes that his country is not being forced out of Africa and that reducing troops is part of his New Africa strategy, perhaps not making rude comments should also have taken a place in it. Now, for more on this, we have with us Dr. Oluwale Ajewale. He is a regional coordinator for the Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, how significant is France's role in combating the militant insurgencies in Chad and the broader Sahel region? And how has this shaped the relationship between France and the African nations like Chad in the past?
Thank you so much for having me once again. It depends on how we want to view these developments. Indeed, France put up some security architecture and defense partnership to aid the countries of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Chad in the fight against terrorism. But we must highlight the fact that that is not without altruism, because that is without altruism, because it is about strategic preservation of France's interest in the region. You know, the issue of migration and the fact that these are the countries that are about the closest to France with the inflow of migrants and then the possible infiltration of terrorism or importation of terrorism into France from Southern Europe through Libya, which connect to the Sahel. So it is in the context of that France actually established this security partnership with these countries. And they've played strategic roles in that regard. But that is also not without the neo-colonial connotations and connections that has come with this, and with the rising anti-French sentiment. The call is that the people in these countries with their military leaders do not want to sustain their relationship further. And the case must also be treated one-on-one. What do I mean? Look at the case of Senegal. The Prime Minister has constantly maintained that in their travesty political challenges that they've had in the recent time, they did not see France standing on their side and to probably curb the recklessness of Macky Sall. So it is in the context of that the Prime Minister is voicing some of the things that he's saying now. And then it is also about looking at what the situation look like now that France is departing from those countries. Are they better off security-wise? I think it is looking at that number that made Macron to be able to make that condescending statement that looks like Africans do not really have the agency power to protect themselves.
On that, Doctor, what do Macron's remarks reveal about these evolving dynamics of France's engagement with its former colonies, and why do they seem to have struck a sensitive chord with African leaders?
It's about the geopolitical contestation that is going on in the region and the emergence of military authoritarians that we're seeing in the region, particularly with the exception of Chad, who has quickly transitioned from military authoritarian to a purported democrat now. You know, the common denominators of this leader is that they are all from the military background who came through the coup. So, and to be able to prime some sort of legitimacy, they needed to anchor their campaign on anti-French sentiment. And to be able to be seen to be doing that is to ensure that whatever represent the vestiges of France or colonial relics of military occupation is demolished in the region. And that is what I think they are doing collectively, which is helping them to gain popularity in the midst of their people, because the popular discussion on the streets, which they are selling to the people, is that the reason why those countries have not developed is also because of the neo-colonial ties that they've maintained with France. The second thing is the fact that we are seeing the rise of multipolarity in the region. Most places that France is vacating, you see them being supplanted by Russia. And the implication of that is that these countries are looking for new partners. You see Turkey, you see the Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of them providing some sort of a partnership, maybe in form of aid or in form of military support in the region. So I think they've come to the realization that they can do without France and embrace new partners that are not going to impose any condition, particularly for democratic transition on them, as the case of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali.
Now, I want you to share your thoughts. What's your idea? Why do you think Africans should stand tall together in these times? You know, these are the times of difficulties. You know, a true friend in times of difficulties not in terms of drinking juice. Now when you're sweating blood and water, these are the times to know a real friend. You understand? For now, African nations should stand strong and condemn that French president for insulting Africans, for being disrespectful to Africans, because the Africa he is disrespectful about, this is the same Africa that has been fueling his nation. This is the same Africa that has been pumping resources to his country. This is the same Africa that has been giving money to his pockets. You know the French company called Total, the petroleum. They take petroleum from Africa and then they sell it back to Africans, at such a bad price, I mean, there are so very many ways to condemn. There are very many ways that France has brought destruction to the nations of Africa as compared to the goodness they've brought. They've brought a very few little things. With Senegal, they were there bringing the system of assimilation, where they would assimilate the Africans into the French system, the system of education, the political system, and the economic system. This one was proved by, the first president of Senegal. His name was Leopold Sédar Senghor. He was also a poet. Leopold Sédar Senghor was assimilated. He studied in a French school and he came back. Some of those Africans say he wasn't a good man. Some Africans complain he was too much of a puppet as compared to how much he was a leader to the people who elected him, to the Africans who thought he would fight for them. Anything the French touch is destruction. Anything the French touch is gonna fail. Now that we are kicking them away, they are throwing insults. But I'm telling Africans this, do not respond to such. That is a toothless dog barking. You shouldn't be afraid when a toothless dog is barking. What you should do, just walk and go wherever you are going. That is what I know. The actions Africans are doing is an action to push us forward because a lot of destruction has been brought by this imperialism. I don't even think there is enough books to write the condemnation that French has brought to Africa. Yep, there is no enough books to write the struggles the French have brought to Africans and the Europeans and everyone who was an imperialist. Yep. So kindly remember to share your thoughts on the comment section. Let's further this discussion and let's learn more and let's find solutions to what can be done in such situations. Don't say that you are not a leader. Don't say that you are too small. Don't say that you are too big. Your thoughts really count. Together, me and you, bring positive change, a better tomorrow for Africa. See you in the next one.